So we're thinking three things today. What does the phrase "listen to the still small voice" mean to you? How does the Benedictine tradition help you, ground you in your listening? And what can you decide to do this year to deepen your understanding? And I thought we'd start by having a prayer and then perhaps having 2 or 3 minutes of quiet, especially after your day yesterday, of thinking about what that still small voice means. So I'll read a prayer and then we'll have about 3 minutes for you to gather your thoughts. Um, and then I'll tell you some of my thoughts. So, beginning with a prayer. God, our Heavenly Father, renew in us the sense of your presence and let it be a constant impulse within us towards peace, trustfulness, and courage on our journey. Teach us to pray heartily, to listen for your voice within, and never to stifle its warnings. Let your spirit flow like a river through our souls and lead us on the right path. Amen. And the quote from the Bible that we're thinking about is from Kings: after the wind, earthquake, and fire, the Lord spoke to Elijah in the still, small voice. So, Pip asked me to do this over Christmas, and Christmas was a highly emotional time for us. My elder daughter, after 9 years, had a little baby before Christmas, a few days before Christmas, after 9 years of disappointment and heartache. And as I drove to Guildford to see this baby, um, my heart was absolutely exploding with joy because there'd been so much pain and heartache around this. And now here I was going on this journey to see this lovely little baby that was such unexpected joy. And on the radio came that hymn, the Christmas carol, Unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. And I drove a lot of the way to Guildford with tears streaming down my face. And for me, God is in that feeling, the bad, the suffering, the anxiety, the joy, the unexpectedness, the fact that this time last year I was praying that she would simply accept and give up. And I felt that very strong feeling that God gets to us in these minutes, in these moments. I don't understand it. I can't fully explain it, but I am convinced that He's there in the whole package. And over Christmas, which was quite an emotional time, several things, unexpected things, stood out for me that I read or people spoke about. And I've put them together because they stayed with me. And I've put my musings, my thoughts about this down. Your thoughts might be very different. I'm not putting them forward as anything really apart from my musings. And one of the first one was um, at a Bible study group at a church I don't normally go to. It's a church over the road. I'm a Catholic. It's a Church of England over the road, and they've been lovely to me since I moved to this village 5 years ago. So I go to their Bible study group, and somebody asked the question, do we really find God in church? And there was a sort of hushed silence when somebody else said, well, no, not really. Um, we go to church for all sorts of reasons, but no. Um, and that set me thinking we may find a welcome, we might find good people, the story of Jesus, beauty, maybe a mystical experience for some. But people looking for God sometimes, not unreasonably, go to church and don't find him. Maybe they're looking for an experience, a certainty, and they don't necessarily find it. I'm sure from some of the conversations I've had, people think, I've turned up, I want a good sermon, and I want a mystical experience. And I thought I would look at this and how the Benedictine tradition has helped me, especially in the light of some of the things I read over Christmas, and what I might do in a small way in 2026, small being the operative word. I've always thought that there is a longing for God in all of us, an ache, a nudge, a need, well described by St. Augustine's talk of restlessness. I see it in the people I know well. I am sure I sense the need in them and in society at large. I think those of us who believe in God can see the need everywhere, and we recognize it in ourselves. Some of the things I read over Christmas made me ask, where is that still small voice? And this one stood out, made me almost want to cry. In the Times, Matthew Paris, he's a journalist, a broadcaster, obviously a clever man. I think he's an atheist. He seems to be declaring himself as such in some of the things he's written. And he wrote this over Christmas. He went to a carol service at Haddon Hall in Derbyshire, a candlelit medieval chapel. And this is what he wrote. It transported me back to another congregation hundreds of years ago, differently dressed, chanting the same chants, celebrating the same old story. I have never believed that story, yet I so love it. One, I noticed that he transfers from using I to using one, I think to distance himself. One was almost swept away by the faith that sustained it. At Christmas, as the years pass, I long more and more to succumb to our own old, beautiful untruths. But I will not. Similarly, another writer, also highly intelligent, interesting, Tom Holland, was recently diagnosed unexpectedly with cancer. He left the hospital appointment where he was told about it and went straight to an ancient church, St Bartholomew's in Smithfield. And for the first time in his life, he said, I offered a wholehearted prayer. I asked for mercy. Previously, Holland had described himself as a cultural Christian, a Protestant agnostic. He seemed to be asking himself what that day meant, but he seemed to be prepared to admit that it had obviously changed him. Another journalist, Jason Cowley, wrote, whenever I go to church on a quiet winter afternoon, I feel a longing. My father, probably my dad, the biggest influence on my life, psychologically definitely damaged by his experiences in the war, a lifelong atheist. I asked him once, did he ever believe? And he said, yeah, when I was in a trench and somebody was trying to kill me. There are no atheists in a trench. To live in Britain is to live in a country saturated by Christian concepts and assumptions. Many people admire these traditions, but let's keep talk of God out of it. There are a multitude of people praising the civilizational and moral inheritance, excuse me, of Christianity, but without the God part. There is a sense that we're abandoning some of the wisdom of the past. We're much too advanced and sophisticated to believe in childish stories, and yet the longing and the restlessness persist. There are signs of revival. Apparently 32 million pilgrims went to Rome in 2025, large numbers of them young people. My late husband never found God in the church, but insisted our children went to a Catholic school. When I said, why? He said, so they have what you have. He tried, he came to church, but then he stopped coming. He said he felt like he was someone with his nose pressed up against a window pane, looking for something that apparently wasn't open to him. In case you worry, he did find God in the end, but it wasn't through a church. I have a dear friend, very clever, very good person. She thinks that I am seeing something she can't see. And I tell her, no, I am seeing the same things as she is. I'm not seeing visions. I'm just interpreting what I see differently. She jokes that she's only friends with me in case she's got it all wrong, because in that case, I might help her get into heaven after all. In recent years, she speaks as if she too has given up finding an answer to the longing. But she seems to find peace in the care of her land, which she and her husband try to farm ecologically. I listen to her talk about it with love and immense care. Many people will describe themselves as spiritual people, but I don't go to church. Rowan Williams, I think, said the spiritual and moral teachings for the church are inextricably linked to the supernatural. You cannot pick and choose at will. At a very much less exalted level, 30 years ago, I knew a woman called Lynn, who was a counsellor using the AA programme for addicts of all descriptions. We had addiction issues in our family. For those of you who don't know the AA 12-step programme, more than one Christian writer, Tom Keating, for instance, and Richard Rohr, have suggested that if we all wanted to live the gospel, we could do well to follow the 12-step programme. Step 1 and 2 are that you must accept that you are powerless and acknowledge that you need God or a higher power to help you. Many addicts reject this, and she said, she was quite a formidable woman, this Lynn. I used to pin them up against a wall and tell them there was no hope without God. So call on him and call him whatever you like. Call him God, get off drugs, whatever you like, but you have to call on him. She told me attempts had been made to work the AA programme without the God bit. but they did not succeed. And amongst her community, word was, this is going back to the 1990s, that George Best had been on one like that without the God. She said to me, the AA program won't work without God. For me, God is and always in the longing. While I looked hard for evidence elsewhere, I believe that longing is universal. I found it in my readings about other cultures and traditions across time and across the world. I believe the longing is there for a reason, not to trick us or to be suppressed or to kid us that the world is a cozier, more comfortable place. That longing doesn't go away because it's essential to our purpose, our journey, as it involves a great deal of letting go of my particular expectations about God and about my need for the right sort of proof, my desire for a certain kind of proof. If you know the story of Great Expectations or you've seen the film, Joe, this lovely character, says to the boy Pip, who's treated him very badly, "Life is a series of partings, dear Pip, and each must be met as it comes." And that seems to be so true of our faith journey. St. Augustine talked of his restlessness and tried to solve his restlessness logically, only with his head. But then he realized that if you are seeking truth, you have to leap beyond the rational world and engage both your head and your heart. Come to St. Benedict and listen with the ear of your heart. So at some point, I think I accepted that God was in that longing. And if he was, I needed to give it roots in the rational world. Not saying I'm a spiritual person, but I don't go to church. Like the AA program, you can't do it on your own. You can't do it without God. You can't do it without others. Years ago in the 1980s, I met Tom Keating before he became well known for his books. A giant of a man in every way, I thought. I had a brief conversation with him and asked him how he reconciled all those different faiths across the world, all absolutely sure they are right. He said something which stayed with me. It's not a supermarket. You can't stand outside looking for the best one, the right one, the proven one. You have to step in faith. Follow the path that calls you with integrity and humility. And at some point along that path, your path, you will look across at the other paths and know it's all okay. You can spend a whole life standing outside and never step in because what you are seeing does not meet your criteria, what you expected God to be like. A reassurance that you can be confident that you're right and all the others are wrong. After much reading and thinking in middle age, I had to give this ache, nudge, longing an anchor. It was not enough to turn up to church once a week. For me, it was ask God for help, step into the Benedictine tradition and try to live it in humility and see what happens. Not so different from the AA program. Admit you're powerless, turn to God for help, live the program just for today. The only achievement you can allow yourself is that you did it as best you could today. At some point down the road, you see your perspective on life has changed. So Benedict said, listen with the ears of your heart to the whole experience of your life. Pay attention to the inner experiences and what they're telling you. There's a voice there speaking to you. I have found Benedict very helpful on that path. What is this situation telling me? Pay attention. Take the longing to church to meet others who are on a similar journey, to access the deep wisdom from the past, to face the challenges you've avoided. A clear pointing out happens in church. What you're doing and what you're thinking is wrong. And again, for me to find Jesus in some way operating for all time. I think you stop asking for so much proof when you find a bit of spiritual rest. In the 1980s, my mother-in-law had some books by a Methodist minister called Leslie Weatherhead, quite different from the Catholic upbringing I'd had. I read them and they had a profound effect on me. because it was beautiful writing about Jesus the man. My Catholic childhood has done a lot about Jesus on the cross and Jesus, Son of God, and Jesus up there, and Jesus would be very cross with you. Um, but this man was writing about, Leslie Weatherhead was writing about Jesus the man, and it was beautiful. It was so accessible. And I was convinced that this guy, Jesus, had actually got it all sorted. And you couldn't go far wrong if you followed him. But still, how do I work my life? There's a Buddhist saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, draw water. After enlightenment, chop wood, draw water. But I felt I needed some kind of structure to hold me on my journey. St. Augustine said, plan your time, arrange your day for the good of your soul. That's tough, but I think the Benedictine tradition offers a possible route for the anawim, for the little people, one that is accessible, not impossibly difficult. My experience during lockdown had a big impact on my relationship with Benedict. I'd been widowed 18 years ago. I was alone in a village where the hedges kept you apart from your neighbours. I spoke to my daughters and friends on Zoom, but I actually spoke face to face with only two people on Zoom, or not on Zoom, in 2 months. I was very scared at the beginning. How am I going to cope with an unending time of aloneness in this house? I'm going to have a plan, I thought. Let's do it like the monks at Worth. Put your day in order and stick to it. Balance your day. Get up at the same time. Walk immediately to get out because that made me feel better. I then did a short mass on Zoom with an Irish priest somewhere in Ireland who did the mass in his carpet slippers and stopped one day to say, listen to that blackbird. He's really happy. He's tweeting outside and he knows God's got it all under control. He's not worried about COVID. And at the end of it all, I did email that priest in his lonely church in his carpet slippers and say, thank you so much. And he said, oh, keep on listening for the blackbird, Anne. So after mass, a little short mass, I did the work I had to do because I was trying to move to this house at that stage. I had lunch, I listened to the Archers, I had a second walk. By that time, after the second walk, it was 4 o'clock. I tried a book with religious wisdom in it, but all I wanted to do was eat toast and jam and watch Escape to the Country, so that didn't go down terribly well. I then made supper, and then there was Vespers. Vespers was a great thing that started in, I'm just so grateful for that Vespers. Then I watched TV, then I went to bed at the same time and I read a good book or a magazine, and then I said thank you, and then I repeated it the next day and the next day and the next day. And it kept me sane, and beautiful things happened in the middle of it. Like I forgot I was 70. I actually got my 70th birthday on the 20th of May that year, and I expected nothing except a bunch of flowers sent to me from the distant daughters. And I had the most amazing day because they'd arranged all sorts of things for me, and messages and films, and people had sent me in the post party hats so I could put a party hat in and join in a birthday party for myself on Zoom. And it was quite simple. Oh, and then as a couple from down the road, a lady came up with her son and stood in the drive with a cake and a candle on it with her children and lit the candle and sang happy birthday. And it was quite simply the best birthday I ever had. So God delivered unexpected things. But the message was stick to the structure, work the program just for today. The purpose of our life, according to the Hindu text, for instance, the Bhagavad Gita, is to discover the reality of God at the heart of one's being. So we are blessed with the Benedictine tradition, ever practical, helping us to seek and find God in our ordinary life. When we think about that Benedictine tradition, somebody called Erik Erikson suggested that we actually begin life with a range of psychological strengths and resources which start life as potential only. Potential which is gradually realized fully through an entire lifespan, possibly becoming personal strengths in our mature years. Knowing God, knowing myself, and finding contentment therein is the central purpose of our lives. But we so need help. Joan Chittister says the spiritual life is a process, not an event. It takes time, love, care. our patient presence. Much of our life involves letting go of things, not just people, but ideas, assumptions, conclusions about ourselves. To go back to Joe in Great Expectations, what he actually says is, Pip, old chap, life is made up of ever so many partings welded together. Divisions, he can't say divisions, divisions among us must come and must be met as they come. The journey demands constant change, adaptation, and letting go. Bereavement and illness force dramatic change. A healthy adult life is not an absence of problems, but a finding a way of reacting to them. Holiness and psychological health are both required for success at living, and their development depends not on avoiding failure or crisis, but adapting to it in such a way that we can love and work effectively. Life is a pattern of crisis, change, transformation, or metanoia, as it's called, a journey to find the peace and contentment we spend so much of our lives looking for elsewhere. But again, we need help. We need a structure, as with the AA. Just do the program. A monk at Worth talked about the offices of the day holding you, a solid structure when you're in mental crisis. Some talk of liminality or sacred space, the point where life throws dramatic changes at us, sometimes called by ancient peoples crazy time. We can't live these times out on our own, out of our own wisdom and resources. When people say, I am a spiritual person, but I don't go to church, it ignores the hard realities of life. I've heard that described as a rather adolescent spirituality, which sounds a bit patronizing, but it does ignore the hard reality of life and how you get through them if you're on your own. So what does the Benedictine tradition offer? A life which grants joy and contentment, not without struggle or pain, but a blessed life. Benedict knew that joy, when it comes, as Jones said, is a slow release miracle. His wisdom is utterly relevant to the 21st century. In a secular world which has completely lost a sense of what leads to the good life, what is the world telling our children? That little baby, my little grandson, born a few days before Christmas, I thought, what will the world tell this little boy? Brings goodness and contentment, the good life. Money, fame, good looks, skinniness, status, power, fame, stuff, instant gratification. It's coming at them from all sides. The more I read the Gospels, the more profoundly I am convinced by the man Jesus. I am a member of a church, I pray, but what else? The steady round of prayers in the Benedictine day creates a sense that everything is briefly and regularly put aside in the day to remember God. It's a reminder that you find God in community. You can't do this without the lessons learned from difficult people and the support given by a caring community. The journey towards the good life in its deepest sense begins when we honestly look at ourselves and begin to learn the skills that assist us on our journey. Benedict is particularly good at helping us in this. He's as much about good order, wise management, and house cleaning as it is about the prayerful dimensions of life. When I was writing notes for this, certain words kept standing out and coming up again and again. Bernard's key words are so opposite to our prevailing culture. I went through my notes before I wrote this and circled the words that seemed to leap out. Humility, restraint, enoughness. He didn't say that, but you know what I mean. Enoughness, authenticity, reverence. Where's that in the society around us? But anyway, as I wrote this in the last few months, and it was the beginning of 2026, I thought I could do one of these words a month. That didn't seem to be too much. Just keeping it in mind for the day, but keeping that one word for the month. Well, that was quite interesting. So January was stability. That's my word for January. And it was quite amazing how much that little word pinged into my mind in situations that I wouldn't always have applied it to. Stability sounds a grand word, but standing still. I don't do standing still very much or quiet very much. Stand still with this situation. Stand still. Don't react. Don't do anything. It was a very interesting month. I could have gone on with that into February, but I thought, no, I'll stick with it because the words I've circled will take me well into 2027. But I wrote next to the words some little helpful things just to finish with. Stability, stick with it. This situation, this person. I was once in the worst 6 weeks of my working life back in 1979. A horrendous, horrendous time involving police and masses of things I didn't understand. And I was in my 20s. I was far too young to handle what I was being asked to handle. And my husband said to me, just stay till lunchtime, just stay till lunchtime. And those words stuck with me. And I did stay till lunchtime. And then he'd phone me up at lunchtime and tell me to stay till 5 o'clock. Um, and just staying in a situation. Sometimes there are no quick solutions. I circled conversio morum, which means little changes to turn ourselves to God. We don't have to make ourselves into Saint Augustine, just tiny changes. Obedience. Get on with it if it's got to be done. Do what's got to be done in this situation with this person. Listen to what the situation is asking of you. And I put next to it, unless it's absolutely vital, slow response. I react immediately to everything because I'm a let's get this done person. But a person at Santander, when I thought I had been scammed, well, I had been scammed, when he was giving me advice, said almost nothing in life involves you doing something in the next second. A fire, somebody dying, yes, but most things you can take a few seconds. Take a few seconds, wait before you respond to anything. And I've remembered that. Cultivate silence. In a noisy world, I was frightened of turning the radio off. Well, after I was widowed, which is, as I say, is about 18 years ago, I put that radio on every day. I was too frightened to turn it off. And one day I decided I'll turn it off just till lunchtime. Not only was it okay, but it changed my mind. It changed my mood. It worked wonderfully. Um, like a day with junk food and a day with good food. You can feel the difference in your mood. I still need the TV on when it's dark. That one's got to be crossed somewhere. But create quiet and spiritual priorities will surface. And that small voice surfaces when the radio's off. Murmuratio was another one. Love that because of dealing with people in the workplace. Quiet grumbling in the workplace. We all know that. Those people who always say, oh, this is awful. Ah, I don't know how this could be allowed. All that sort of stuff. And who talk about each other negatively. Avoid it at all costs. It's linked to benedicere, if that's how you pronounce it. Speak good words, but not too many. And reticence. I'm a talker. I will shut up in a minute because I'm nearly finished. Speak good words, but I've put in brackets, but not too many good words. You think of Bambi in the film Bambi, if you can't say nothing nice, say nothing at all. Reticence. There's going to be a month on reticence. That'll be interesting. Study, read the Bible or what other people have said about God. But also, what have you filled your head with today? I mean, I've read an awful lot about Prince Andrew and Epstein, and I think when I look at it, I feel myself drawn to it. I'm thinking, hang on, this is not doing your mind any good at all. Scrolling, daydreaming, and replaying scenes from your life in the past. That's a big one. Humility. That's another big word I circled. I don't take selfies, but self-promotion. Those advertisements that we're bombarded with because I'm worth it, my rights. I'm going to do things my way. Recognize and accept mistakes. Hospitality, treat everybody you meet today equally. To be the same to my nice neighbours. I've got lovely neighbours here and lovely neighbours over at the church. But there's that mother who repeatedly parks in front of my gate so I can't get my car out, trying to be the same with them. Stuff. Benedict didn't talk about stuff, but we know what he means. He's a world away from consumerism, consumption, and waste. How much stuff do I actually need? I learned the hard way. 2020 lockdown, I moved. Solicitors did their work. Um, I had a house that we'd lived in, family, grown up, children had grown up, mother had come to live with us. 39 years of stuff. Um, Charity shops shut down. Nobody could come and collect stuff. Nobody was taking anything. Nobody was going to help. And there was an attic. And in that attic was a nappy bucket. Well, the girl who had the nappy bucket is now, well, she's now 43. Um, all that stuff had to be got rid of. And eventually, in despair, grumpy removal men brought an extra van and I put it outside the front door and checked all these things I hadn't seen for years and years, lifted them up. Okay, go, okay, go. And I saw it all that 39 years that I hadn't really been aware was in our attic, stuffed in a lorry. And I thought, if there's a Rembrandt in there, I'm never ever going to know about it. So I don't need to worry. Off it went in a lorry. And this house is now, nothing comes into this house um, that I couldn't just give away or whatever if I needed to. Delight in everything, but cling to nothing. And I thought during lockdown, when I was going on my 2 walks a day, the beautiful countryside we live in Kent, it's beautiful around here. It's all free. It's just free. It's all there for me. I'm looking out the window over rooftops now, trees, trees line the road down to where my old house was, and also down to the place where my husband is buried and where I will be buried too. And it's just beautiful. And I don't have to look after it or mow the grass out there. Um, Take care of the stuff you keep. Care. See the ordinary as sacred. Look after it with reverence. We've lost the sense of what is sacred. February's word you'll be delighted to know is restraint. It really surfaced, restraint. Don't be greedy. I found myself saying to my other little grandson, don't be greedy or wait for your tea. Who says don't be greedy anymore? Um, or indeed, who says wait for your tea? But anyway, the restraint needs to be mine in February, so I will be a restrained person by the end of February. Um, be authentic, be who you are. The monks at Worth, I think, do that very well. I once asked a very deep question of a monk there, and he thought about it for a moment and just looked at me and said, I don't know. And I waited for what would have happened in every other situation in life for him to flannel something. Full stop. He didn't know. He told me he didn't know. He wasn't going to lose any sleep over me not knowing, over him not knowing, or me not knowing. It was all fine. So authentic. Don't pretend you are something you're not. Balance in the day. Balance. I've talked about that. Try to balance the day, but be ready to adjust the day because we're not allowed to have a comfortable, balanced day every day for sure. And letting go, like Joe, life is made up of ever so many partings. I've got enough words there to keep me busy till, or at least March or April in 2027. It's also sensible and doable. I can just start tomorrow. Persistence in it is something else. For in the end, we're all just children. We think of the philosopher Jung. He wrote about fairy stories. He looked at fairy stories across time, across cultures, over the ages, and found that they are all strikingly similar. They are ways of teaching children about the good and evil in a way that they can understand at the level they're at. They're strikingly similar in their messages. This is what evil looks like. This is what good looks like. It allows a young child to access vital understanding, which is actually beyond their capacity to understand fully. And I think, I'm going to say we, you might not agree. I think I am like that. I'm just a child in this world of God. I need metaphors and to access something that's way bigger than me. Going back to the Christmas story, I once taught it to a class of 11-year-olds in a non-church school with most of those 11-year-olds not having a church background. A couple of them did, but most of them didn't. I wanted to do some English writing. We read the various Advent accounts from the Bible in an English lesson, and then they got into groups to talk about what the characters might think and feel before we started to write. They got into their groups and then they fed back. These were girls without any hang-ups at all about it was silly to believe in religion or this silly story. They'd done the reading, they were good readers. They also loved discussion. I have not forgotten what they came up with. I'd said to them, think about the characters in the Christmas story, Mary, Joseph, Shepherd's Kings. This is what they thought. Well, they were all scared. Some of the children said a bit. Others said no, they were a lot scared. There were a bit of arguments about that. They were out of their comfort zone. They were all asked to move when they didn't really want to move. They were playing a part in a bigger story, but they didn't understand any of it. There was confusion in their minds and hearts. And this from 11-year-olds with no hang-ups about Christmas story. Excited by what I'd heard, we read T.S. Eliot's Journey of the Magi, if you know that. The kings didn't really know why they were making this journey. The children got that, but they got a bit stuck with the idea that when the kings returned home, they could not be happy with their old gods. That was beyond an 11-year-old. But I said, well, it's often more letting go. We got some wonderful writing from it. I'm not suggesting that the Bible stories are on a par with fairy tales, but to return to Matthew Paris to finish with, perhaps he could look a little closer at the story he wanted so much to be true. So finishing with St. Augustine, you made us for yourself, O Lord. Our heart is restless till it rests in thee. And if I had to write a simple sentence after all those words, I really think that trying to follow the rule helps my heart to be a little bit more rested. And I am not going to spend later years looking for anything else. So I thought what we could do, if there's time, Pip, is first of all talk to each other. If you could organise it in the room, talk to the person next to you about how the Benedictine tradition has helped you find and listen to this and respond to this still small voice. And then perhaps somebody could feed back. If there's time, you can change all this, Pip. Or, and then, if there's still time, what can you do this year to deepen your response to Benedict in a simple way? Because the big plans sometimes fall apart, don't they? So that's it. So if we say the first one is, how has the Benedictine tradition helped you hear the still small voice? And I don't think one needs to get too strung up on the still small voice, more just why are you here when you could just go to church? How does it help you find God? What does it do for you?
Okay. That was the first question. Was there a second one as
The
well?
second one, if we'd got time, I thought perhaps we kept them separate.
Okay.
If there's time. The second one was, how can you deepen your listening this year? What are you going to do? I mean, you'll be a member of the Benedictine community this time next year. What are you going to actually do this year? I think if you name it, keep it small, keep it very small. Short, what are you going to do? Because we could all go away and feel happy and holy, but what are you actually going to do? What is the thing you're going to do this year that, though by this time next year, has become part of your practice? I think that the point is not necessarily to do something extra because it could quite easily be, I can deepen this thing.
Yeah.
And I can recommend the word because the word pops up when the drains are blocked.
Okay.
all the
Yeah.
other things, the word
Yes.
pops up from your subconscious. Are you dealing with this in a stable way when the
Yes.
drains are dropped? God, our Heavenly Father, renew in us the sense of your presence. Let it be a constant impulse within us towards peace, trustfulness, and courage on our journey. Teach us to pray heartily, to listen for your voice within, and never to stifle its warnings. Let your Spirit flow like a river through our souls and lead us on the right path. Amen.